Thank you for tuning in to the Voice of Adventure. Today we will be finishing our story with Thaddeus and his party in The Battle in Darkness, Part 2. Sent to learn of the Dark King Galat's plan and mysterious power, Thaddeus and his party were given the opportunity to join him and take his new power into the world. But the party saw that his power came at a cost. It drained the life and energy out of the land around them. Refusing to join King Galat, Thaddeus and his party are now trapped in a shadow world about to take on the king. The party paused, gasping for breath. The never-ending onslaught of shadow warriors sapped at their dwindling strength.
"We can't keep this up much longer,"
Thaddeus said, watching more warriors rise from the shadows.
"We need to find a way out of here, and soon."
Rowan jumped behind Thaddeus, deflecting a blow with the side of his axe.
"There has to be some trick or secret to this darkness. Something that will free us from this world."
Rowan dodged to the side, then swung his axe, slicing the shadow warrior in two.
"King Galat has just been standing there while we've been fighting."
Sarah slid her bow over her shoulder, grabbing her two knives.
"I don't think he's even taken a step. With all these annoying shadows, he doesn't need to fight us himself,"
Rowan responded.
"No, Sarah's right,"
Lyra chimed in.
"No matter where we have gone in this dark realm, he hasn't moved. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe he has to concentrate to keep us here, and moving around can break that concentration. If we force him to move, we may be freed. We don't know if that will work,"
Rowan managed while breathing heavily.
"It's our best shot right now."
Thaddeus hesitated, looking at the army of shadows blocking his path. Suddenly an arrow flew past, disintegrating the nearest shadow warrior.
"It's either we fight and find out, or we'll slowly be overrun,"
Lyra shouted.
"Let's carve a path."
From Thaddeus's left, Rowan bellowed,
"Come at me, you pathetic shadows,"
before charging headfirst into a mountain of warriors. Thaddeus quickly followed suit, running straight down the path Rowan was making. Before long he got up, hacking and slashing at any warrior that came close. With Lyra and Sarah behind them, Thaddeus and Rowan slowly carved a path through. Gasping for air, they finally pushed through and stood right before King Galat. Rowan immediately charged, leaping to the air with his axe in both hands over his head. With all his strength, he swung down, but a shadow jumped in the way of his swing. However, the momentum and pure strength behind Rowan's swing made it impossible to stop. King Galat had bought himself a few seconds, but an axe was still sailing towards his head. Right before Rowan's axe would have struck, King Galat disappeared, suddenly reappearing about a foot away. For a few seconds, everything was silent. The party had made this desperate ploy, but didn't know if this would actually free them from the dark world. King Galat stood infuriated in disbelief, thinking,
"How could this group of adventurers get to me like that?"
After what felt like an eternity, their surroundings began to rematerialize. The walls, ceilings, and floor all reappeared, vanquishing the darkness the party had fought in. But the world was dark around them. The sun had set.
"How long were we in that world?"
Lyra thought. For a long minute, no one moved. The party wanted to celebrate their victory, but they were prepared for the king to use his power again. The king didn't move. He still couldn't believe the party had managed to free themselves from his incredible power.
"Come on,"
Lyra shouted, opening the door out of the dining room. Slowly the party turned and followed, stepping out into the corridor. 4 guards at the door jumped back in shock as the party ran out of the room. With a shout, they called for more guards and began to pursue the party. Thaddeus, Rowan, and Sarah quickly dealt with any guards that stumbled across their path, slashing, hacking, or stabbing as the situation called for. Lyra, in the meantime, led the party down the winding corridors and halls before they finally reached the main door of the castle. After stabbing the couple guards at the door, the party was home free. They bolted out the large doors and into the courtyard, feeling like they had escaped from King Galat. The bitter cold air of night startled them. It was midday when they arrived in the city, and now was the middle of the night. As they ran, Thaddeus, who was holding up the rear, suddenly felt weak and exhausted, like his life and energy were being sucked out of him. He collapsed on the ground, having no strength to stand up. As the rest of the party reached the palace wall, Lyra looked back.
"Thaddeus!"
She screamed. Rowan grabbed her arm as she tried to run back to him.
"Rowan, let me go. I have to save him."
Tears ran down her eyes as she fought against Rowan's grip. As she spoke, guards flooded out of the Black Castle, quickly surrounding Thaddeus. In their midst, King Galat walked out, his hand outstretched, a dark purple ball of energy swirling in his palm. Thin, almost imperceptible lines of dark purple energy flowed out of Thaddeus towards the ball in the king's hand. Shaking, Thaddeus lifted up his head and mouthed the word, "Go." Rowan, understanding that they couldn't save Thaddeus, picked Lyra up and ran out of the castle gate. Lyra kicked, cried, and screamed as Rowan carried her through the city and out the front gate. All eyes were still on them as they ran, but no one stepped forward to stop them. Even the guards at the front gate let them pass. Once Rowan made it to where they stashed the wagon, he stopped running and put Lyra down. Her eyes were red and puffy, her face stained with tears.
"How could we leave him there? They will just kill him,"
Lyra shouted. She fell down to her knees, tears staining the dirt. Sarah knelt down and embraced her, but didn't have any words of comfort, as she struggled to hold back her own tears. Rowan stood by the cart, gripping the wood hard enough to crack off a piece of it. A feeling of guilt washed over him as he thought,
"It should have been me that stayed. I should have stayed behind so the others could escape."
With tears rolling down his face, Rowan let out an earth-shattering scream, the guilt and anger overwhelming him. As he finished, he took a few deep breaths and turned to Lyra. Kneeling down, he wiped the tears from his eyes and spoke softly.
"Thaddeus will be okay. They aren't going to kill him." "How do you know?"
"Because if they do, no castle, army, or magic power will stop me from shoving my axe in that king's neck." Behind them, they heard a horse approach and neigh in agreement. For a few moments, they sat in bewilderment, shocked that their horse was still near and that Rowan screamed didn't scare it away.
"I guess our horse is prepared to fight for Thaddeus as well,"
Rowan chuckled.
"Come, let's get word to our king. Then we will come back with an army and rescue Thaddeus."
With hearts full of pain and sorrow, the three of them got in their cart and rode away from the dark castle. Lyra watched the peak of the dark castle disappear over the dirt hills.
"I swear, we will come back and save you."
They rode swiftly. Their horse Rede refused to rest until he was about to collapse. Without stopping, they once again passed through abandoned towns, forests, and the few rivers that had dried up even further. Rede didn't falter on the road. He pressed on regardless of what was around him or what time of day it was. In a couple days, they reached the creepy forest on the border of the Dark King's land. Once out of King Galat's land, they finally stopped. Everyone felt overwhelmed and exhausted from the travel, especially Rede, who wheezed with every breath. They found a flat place nearby and barely finished making a small fire before they all fell asleep. The next morning they arose, still sorrowful, but rested. Without a word, they prepared to travel again. Rowan grabbed the reins and gently nudged Rede back to the road. They had a long journey to reach their king's land. After a few hours of travel, the party came across a large military encampment, bearing banners of every major kingdom this side of the Dark King's land. There were the green banners bearing an aggressive boar of the Kanek kingdom, the red banners with soaring eagles of the Adalar kingdom, and the pure white banners with the majestic stag of the Jelen kingdom. But the party noticed that their kingdom of Klonge was missing. As he continued down the road, a soldier blocked their path and shouted, "Halt! Who goes there?" He wore basic armor that barely fit. The leather straps holding the pieces together were loose, making the breastplate hang at an odd angle. On the breastplate was a soaring eagle holding a sword in its claw. Rowan stopped the cart next to the soldiers. "We are a group of adventurers who were sent by the King of Konge to investigate the lands of King Galat. We just escaped out of his kingdom and have vital information for our king. Please, let us pass, as we have a long journey back to our king." "I am not permitted to let you pass, as we are preparing for war. But there is no need for you to journey far, as King Regnu is in this encampment. Come, I will take you to him." The soldier slowly led the party down the dirt road, leading Rede by the reins. He took them around the outskirts of the encampment, walking by the Connect and Jelen camps. As the party crested a hill, passing the last Jelen banner, they saw the yellow banners with the golden sun of the Konge kingdom. A wave of hope washed over the party as the familiar banners grew closer. Their king was indeed here, and he brought his whole army. The yellow banners filled the valley, surrounded by countless tents of expectant soldiers. Leaving the horse and cart behind, the party walked between the fields of tents towards the king's large golden tent. It was many times larger than the single-person tents the soldiers used, with two of the king's personal guards standing out front. After a brief introduction, one of the guards stepped into the tent. He quickly returned and brought them in front of the king. King Regnu sat at the head of the table with 3 other men. On the king's right sat a young man with short black hair and a wicked smile. He was clothed in green that could blend in with any foliage. On his chest, sewn into the fabric, was a simple depiction of a boar charging ahead. Next to him was a man with brown hair tied in a bun on top of his head. He wore elegant, pure white robes that seemed to faintly glow. A majestic stag with an absurdly large set of antlers adorned his white garments. And on the king's left sat a wrinkled old man, with long gray hair pulled back into a ponytail. He wore a full set of armor, 2 long swords at his side, with the symbol of an eagle etched into his chestplate. "The other kings," Rowan guessed. The party quickly knelt, waiting on the king. King Regnu stood. "Ah, my favorite adventuring party. Many doubted you would return, but I had faith. I knew you would make it back. Please stand and speak freely, as I believe you have the information we need." He sat back down, leaning forward, excited to hear what the party had found. "My kings," Rowan stood and addressed the table. "We do have some information that may prove helpful. But first, my king, why were many doubting us? We have been gone for just over a month, and most of that was the traveling it took to get here. Why then were you worried we wouldn't return? It has been 4 months since you all left my kingdom. I expected you back a few months ago, but when you did not, my advisors guessed that you either were killed or ran away from the task. Each day became harder for me to keep my faith in you for... Wait, there's only 3 of you here. Where is the missing one?" Rowan, Sarah, and Lyra had no idea so much time had passed. Everything did look and feel slightly different. The air felt colder. King Galat's land looked more withered than before. But could it have really been so many months? The party couldn't believe it. After getting over the initial shock, Rowan explained what happened. He walked them through their journey, the strange things they saw and experienced, and what the Dark King told them and did. The kings leaned in and listened intently when Rowan talked about the Dark King's power. "This is great information, but I don't think it changes our strategy," the old man said. "I agree," replied the man in white. "We now know more of what the Dark King is capable of. We need to choose our champions carefully. If the small group is to fight the king while we break through their defenses, then we need the quickest and strongest to assassinate the king." Rowan dropped to one knee. "Please, allow us to join this group." Sarah and Lyra quickly followed Rowan's example. "We may not be the strongest fighters, but we have fought him before, so our experience will be invaluable in this battle. King Regnu, they are your subjects. It is your decision whether they can be your champions."
the old man said. King Regnu contemplated for a few minutes before responding. Yes, they will be my champions. The few days of preparations felt like an eternity for the party, knowing that every day they wait is another day Thaddeus was in danger. If he was still alive, that is. But the party forced that thought out of their minds. He has to be alive, they all thought. When weapons were sharpened, armor polished, and orders given, the 4 kings led their men into the Dark King's land. With tens of thousands marching, it took many days to traverse the landscape. After a long journey, they saw the sun sinking behind the dark, imposing castle of King Galat. Finally, Lyra thought, I have come back to rescue you, Thaddeus. Rowan walked up to King Regnu's horse. He knew we were coming. The gates are closed and soldiers sit on the walls waiting for us to attack. Yes, but we prepared for this. The king waved his hand, and the handful of catapults they brought launched a volley of boulders. They crashed into the gate and walls, sending shockwaves through the city. Most of the soldiers on the walls were unfazed by the attack. They stood their ground, bows at the ready. Lyra stared at these soldiers, feeling something off about them. She watched them as wave after wave of boulders flew through the air and shook the wall. Then it came to her. As a part of the wall collapsed, most of them weren't regular people on the wall. They were the Shadow Warriors. Prepare the men for assault, King Regnu said to the leaders around him. Apologies, my king, but an assault would be unwise, Lyra blurted out, lowering her head. Unwise? I know you have gone on many quests, but what do you know about warfare? We don't have an unlimited amount of boulders, and we should attack while they are reorganizing. This is the best time to attack and overwhelm their forces. Your Highness, you do know more about warfare than I, but the men on those walls are not men at all. They are shadow warriors we fought when we fought the king. They stand unfazed by your attacks and wait for your men to run in so they can eliminate as many as possible. The king looked down from his high horse at this woman who had not only spoken out of turn, but questioned his tactics. Looking back to the wall, she did have a point. Only a couple soldiers on those walls took notice of the barrage of boulders. Maybe they were waiting in ambush. Then what would you do? The king asked. Keep up the barrage until we run out of boulders, and instruct your soldiers to not advance until morning. The king studied Lyra's face, determining if this plan was worth investing in. He looked once more at the castle wall and the shadow warriors on it. Then one of the commanders rode up. The men are ready to attack on your orders, the commander said. For a long minute, the king said nothing. He just looked out to the Dark King's city in front of him. Sir, your orders? Keep the catapults going as long as we can, and tell the men we attack at dawn. The man stared at the king for a second, wondering why the sudden change in orders. They had just made all the preparations for an assault, but now the king was holding them back. It didn't make sense, but it was far above what this man was responsible for. He quickly rode off to tell the men, and helped them prepare camp for the night. With the moon overhead, Lyra sat on the rock looking over the city. The catapults still occasionally peppered the city wall with boulders, but most of them had run out of ammo hours ago. A handful of small fires dotted the city, congregating near the holes the catapults put in the wall. Lyra sat there, unable to find rest, knowing that tomorrow they would confront the Dark King. Can't sleep either? Sarah walked up and sat on the grass in front of the rock. They sat in silence for a long time, feeling the anxiety and uncertainty that tomorrow would bring. You know, Sarah spoke up, I'm scared of what tomorrow will bring, and not just the battle against the king, but the answer to the question I don't want to ask. If Thaddeus is alive? Lyra spoke the question, as it was the same one on her heart. I am not ready for the answer either, for I fear I won't like what I hear, Sarah responded. But I have to believe that Thaddeus is still alive. I cannot allow any doubts to creep into my mind when we have a monumental battle tomorrow. So I refuse to believe that Thaddeus is dead. And even if by some chance he is, I know that he would want us to free this land from the dark power that holds its life.
He's not dead,
Rowan said as he approached.
Thaddeus is far too strong to die at the hands of some evil king.
Lyra wiped a couple of teardrops from her eyes. Rowan and Sarah put on confident smiles when they met her eyes, but Lyra knew that they were also scared inside. There were too many variables, too many things that could go wrong for them to be confident. Who knows if the elite group they were a part of would even be able to defeat King Galat? It took all of their party's effort just to force the king to move when they were trapped in the dark world. Would they be able to strike King Galat down? Lyra suppressed these doubts because failure wasn't an option. It may look impossible, but if they didn't win here, King Galat would suck the life out of the world, like he did to this kingdom. He would lead the world down a path of destruction under the guise of salvation. So they had to win. Not only to save the land, but also to save Thaddeus.
Dawn came and the soldiers stood in ranks, waiting for the orders to attack. The catapults stopped about halfway through the night, but they were able to break the walls further, creating a few additional holes for the army to penetrate. A large man in full plate armor walked up next to them and said, "It's time for us to go." Rowan, Sarah, and Lyra followed and joined the other elite soldiers, about 12 of them in total. Each kingdom had sent their mightiest soldiers, clad in war-torn armor and ready for a fight. The large man stood in front of the group. Addressing them all, he spoke with authority. "Fellow warriors, I am Aid, Prince of Adalar. Our kings have put me in charge of this mission. I know you have heard this 1,000 times, but our mission is critical to the success of the battle. If we do not find and slay King Galat, our army will fall. You are all incredibly strong, but the only way for us to win is to work together and take down their king. Follow my lead, and we will have their king's head on a platter." The group of elite soldiers shouted in agreement, readying themselves for the seemingly impossible battle. "You three," Aid pointed at Rowan, Sarah, and Lyra. "I was told you fought him before. We've heard what you reported to our kings, but advise us in battle. Your knowledge may be what gives us the advantage." They nodded, agreeing to share knowledge they didn't possess. They were allowed on this mission because they had fought the king before, but they didn't know what he was truly capable of. They only saw a fragment of his powers, what he could do with it. What good would this knowledge do if he chose a different tactic? King Kange sat in front of his troops, atop of his horse in full battle armor, watching over the city. He waited for a few agonizing minutes as the sun rose behind them. The golden light shone over the leafless trees and into the valley. Then he suddenly motioned to the other kings and screamed, "Attack!" Aid led their group up the left flank, blending in with the soldiers rushing to the city. As they approached the wall, their group veered away from the soldiers and snuck through a small hole in the south wall. Once inside, the group quickly killed a couple of enemy soldiers before they could alert anyone. When the area was free from enemies, the group rushed through the city, running down alleys while avoiding attention of a few warriors and guards who were frantically running to the city wall. Hundreds of residents lined the streets, too weak and sick to rise. Their skin had a pulsing purple glow, just like the vines on the castle. Lara stopped and watched as a man's body pulsed, and suddenly his hair grayed, his skin wrinkled and sagged, and his body began to shrivel. Lyra jumped back and almost screamed. She held her hands over her mouth just to keep from making a sound. Rowan saw she stopped and ran to get her. "We don't have time to stop. We need to keep moving." He helped Lyra to her feet.
As they ran to catch up with the group, he asked,
"What happened to make you freak out like that?"
I saw his body pulse purple, like the veins on the tower, and suddenly his hair was white and wrinkles had formed on his face. The dark power the king is using has infected his people and is literally stealing their life away. Why is he still using this power? How can he not see what is happening?
He is blind to it. The power has blinded him, and now he can't stop using it. But that's why we're here. It's up to us to end this and to free this land of its curse.
Rowan finished as they caught back up with the group. They now stood at the base of the king's castle. Surprisingly, no guard stood at the gate. It was wide open, almost inviting them in. Aid stood in the alley, peeking around the corner at the open gate.
Why would it be open and unguarded? Does he know our plan?
Aid thought, while contemplating what to do. He stood there for a few moments, with the eyes of all the elite soldiers on him, waiting for his orders.
Whether he knows we're coming or not, it does not change our mission.
He turned to the group and whispered,
He may be expecting us. He left the gate open and no one's guarding it. So if he knows we are coming, he's confident he can win. But that won't stop us. Our mission continues regardless. Follow me and be prepared for anything.
Aid turned and ran into the castle, with everyone close behind. Their footsteps echoed through the stone halls as they ran through the castle. Reports from the lookouts said that King Galat was spotted on his large balcony near the top of the castle. They ran towards the stairs, carefully maneuvering around each corner in case guards were stationed inside the castle. And even with the noise they made, no guards appeared. After about 10 minutes, they reached what they believed to be the king's chambers. Cautiously, they approached the open doors when they heard a voice inside.
There is no use hiding. I know you all are there.
Aid hesitated for a second, but then walked through the door. He motioned everyone else to follow. Reluctantly, they followed and stepped inside. King Galat stood in the doorway to his balcony. He wore black robes that looked brand new. His hands were covered with black leather gloves, and stretching up onto his face were veins of purple, pulsing with the dark energy. His face looked like it had aged 40 years since Rowan, Sarah, and Lyra last saw him. He stepped into the room and addressed the group.
I'm surprised it took you this long to reach me. I tried to make it easy for you. I left the gate open and told my guards to leave me. And still you kept me waiting.
Aid drew his sword, interrupting King Galat.
Now, there's no need for that. I know you came to kill me, but I have a better offer. Join me.
He extended an open hand to the group.
This power is unlike anything you've seen before. With it, we can become gods of this world.
Don't listen to him, Lyra shouted, stepping forward. You saw the state of this land. You saw his people lying in the streets. This power may make you a god, but it will steal life from everything around you.
Silence! You don't know what you're talking about, King Galat retorted.
I don't know what I'm talking about? Look at yourself. The power you claim will free the world is stealing your very life. Don't tell me you're still blind to it.
King Galat looked at each of their faces and found only sternness.
Fine, he said. I guess I won't be needing him anymore. He stretched his hand to the balcony, and Thaddeus' body floated in. Thaddeus was limp, clearly unconscious, with scars and dried blood on his chest and face.
Thaddeus!
Lyra screamed. She tried to run to him, but Rowan held her back. King Galat tossed Thaddeus in front of the group. He served his purpose. I was going to use him as a bargaining chip, but your faces showed me that you have no intention of backing down or joining my side. But it's no use worrying about him. He's probably dead by now. The king laughed maniacally. Now, since you're not going to join me, your death is imminent. He raised his hand,
and the whole world around them fell into darkness. Just as before, shadow warriors appeared from the darkness, armed and ready for a fight. But this time, there were almost 3 times more shadows than before. Rowan, still holding Lyra back, spoke up. The shadow warriors are never ending. No matter how many you slay, they will keep reappearing. But if we can get the king to move or to use a different power, then the darkness around us will vanish, and we will be back in the real world. Aide stepped up next to him. Thank you. Form teams of 2 or 3, he said, addressing the group. Work together to defeat the shadows around you, and together we will work our way towards the king. Looking at Rowan, he said, check on your friend before joining. With a mighty battle cry, the group of elite soldiers charged the army of shadow warriors, slicing down all in their path. Lyra, Rowan, and Sarah rushed towards Thaddeus, who lay lifeless on the ground. Lyra grabbed his hand in hers, tears streaming down her face as she sat next to him. Her fears and worries overran her as she sat there. Sarah checked for her pulse, hoping that he was merely unconscious. When she placed her fingers on his neck, she felt a weak, fading heartbeat. Stay with us, Sarah shouted, tears forming in her eyes. Rowan rose and grabbed his axe off his back. While they were checking on Thaddeus, the rest of the group had split off to fight the king and his shadows, which left them defenseless. A small army of shadows circled them, waiting for an opportunity to attack. Fighting back tears, Rowan said, I'll take care of these imbeciles. Get him back. Rowan charged, releasing his fury into each attack. Sarah and Lyra sat next to Thaddeus, having no idea how to save him. Sarah only had basic training in medicine, but she didn't bring any herbs. Not only that, but even if she had, he was too far gone for that. She racked her brain for any hint, clue, or morsel that could help save Thaddeus, but she had nothing. Sarah could just barely feel his pulse now. If she didn't do something soon, it would be too late. In her frustration and desperation, she screamed, You can't leave us, and slapped his face. Lyra was shocked, not understanding why Sarah would do this. Sarah continued screaming through her tears. Thaddeus, come back to us, Thaddeus! Lyra, feeling Sarah's desperation, joined in. Thaddeus, you have to come back. You can't leave us here alone. Thaddeus! For a long while, they continued shouting, desperately hoping that somehow their words would reach Thaddeus, wherever he was. Eventually, through the tears and shouting, Lyra felt Thaddeus squeeze her hands. Thaddeus? I'm here, he managed. A wave of relief washed over Lyra and Sarah as they helped Thaddeus up to his feet. His body was weak, but he was gaining back his strength with every passing minute. Rowan turned as he slashed another shadow. You're back, he exclaimed, joy replacing the rage on his face. They saved you. Yes, their words led me back here. Who are those people? Thaddeus asked. They are warriors from other kingdoms, helping us fight the king. The armies of 4 kingdoms are currently fighting at the city wall, while we were sent here to assassinate Galat. They watched as each time their allies tried to jump the king, a shadow warrior blocked their path. Each and every attempt was stopped, and now they stood together, breathing heavily. Nice of you to finally join us, one of the men said. Sorry, it's not easy bringing someone back from the dead, Rowan responded. No matter, Aide spoke through short breaths. How did you 4 manage to get the king to move? He has stopped our every advance. Well, he has tripled the amount of soldiers. And I guess we got a bit lucky, Rowan said. King Galat looked at them with a painfully wicked smile. The purple veins on his face had spread and were pulsing quickly, causing him great pain. Small trails of blood leaked out of his nose and ears, and his eyes grew redder by the minute. Before long, his body would break.
Ignoring the pain, he gloated. Are you all done resisting? With this power, I could fight you for a millennia. King Galat, stop this. That power is destroying your body from the inside. The pain you feel is because the dark power is flowing through your body, and your body cannot handle that much power. Let go of it. It's not too late to save your life. You think I will let this power go? This is nothing. But it's time to end this. King Galat strained and summoned 100 more shadow warriors. But suddenly he stopped. His eyes grew wide as blood pooled out the corners. The king fell to his knees as he started vomiting up blood. The shadow warriors vanished, and soon the darkness faded, and the room returned to normal. A pool of blood formed around King Galat as his insides kept breaking. Thaddeus walked up to the king and knelt beside him. I tried to warn you, but it's too late for you now. The power you had was not meant for people, for all it does is steal power from others to temporarily strengthen you. The only thing I can do now is to end this quickly, so you don't have to die in agony. Rowan, sword. Thaddeus stood and caught the sword Rowan tossed his way. With one quick slash, it was over. The king lay lifeless on the floor in a pool of his own blood. The purple veins disappeared as the dark power within him faded. A few minutes passed until a cheer rang out from the warriors. They had done it. They slew the king. Uncle Don closed the book, laying it on his lap. That can't be it, Uncle, Will said, suddenly sitting up. That can't be where the story ends. Uncle Don leaned back in his chair and smiled. Sadly, that is where their tale ends. I had the same reaction when I first heard the story. You expect there to be more. You expect the story to have a complete ending. But it doesn't. It just ends with them saving Thaddeus and completing their mission. But what should I do now? Will asked. I cannot accept that this story has an ending like that. How about you tell me how it ends then? Will looked at Uncle Don confused. Since you want a complete ending, tell me, what happens after they kill the king? Okay, well, with the king dead, they bring his head down to the city wall. Seeing this, the few people left fighting surrender. The Four Kingdoms people shout in victory. And they all go home victorious. Will sat back smiling, happier with his ending. And they live happily ever after? Uncle Don asked. Yes. Oh, also, Thaddeus and Lyra get married. The end. I think that is the perfect ending. Thank you for listening to The Voice of Adventure. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to follow wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also keep up with the stories and see extra content on Instagram at Josiah the Author. See you in the next story.